me keep going.
Yes,
You could technically go and look at all of your past clients and
correct.
see what are the commonalities in all
Yes.
of them, and
Hmm.
then adjust your marketing to see, okay, so visionaries, do they have the bigger eyes? Do
Yes.
do they have bigger ears? Do they have, like that's so cool. I'm totally having my team go back and look to
And you
see
can
if
do
you
it.
can see the commonality because that's just like brilliant.
You know how else you can do it? Go
Oh,
read their emails because people will tell you how they think.
they
'Cause-
will. If
yes,
it's
because
think or I feel or I see or oh
so
yeah. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm your host, Shay Wheat, founder of Grace and Ease Productions, where we support entrepreneurs just like you with event-based marketing and sales strategies, allowing you to build your authority, your credibility, and your visibility in your industry. And today's guest is somebody that is known as the people problem solver. He's really an expert in improving communication skills with others based on their facial features. Now, from his humble beginnings as an introverted help desk employee to his tenure as the regional vice president of sales with a, get this, staggering $40 million book of business under his belt, he was really eager to share his transformative insights with the world. So he transitioned from corporate arena to becoming an esteemed speaker and educator, and now he graces stages alongside luminaries such as Janine Driver, Brad Lee, Steve Sims, Greg Reed, and Alex Hermosi. Really just empowering audiences with the invaluable skill set that has transformed his life. Please help me welcome Brian Galke to the Creating Powerful Impact stage. How are you, Brian?
I'm excellent. How are you doing today?
Lovely.
Lovely.
And I love how that we met. So
Yes.
I was in Dallas and I was running and producing an event.
Hmm.
And one of our mutual friends, Atiba, was doing a dinner with friends. And he was the MC for the event. So I'm like, sure, why not? We've already got everything all set up. We're ready to rock and roll for this event. Let's go meet some dinner with friends. And that's how I met you.
Yeah. It's the smartest thing that he does is everywhere he goes, you can dine alone or you can introduce things. And the really cool thing about it is he doesn't just say, "Hey, I'm in town, come meet me." He kind of picks and says, "Who is close enough to that where dinner's going to be? And let's introduce people to each other." And that's
It's
a really
strategic.
unique approach. Yes, it's
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
like, who do I know? And he knows a lot of people. He travels all over
Yes.
the place. And
Yes.
he's strategic about who he invites because,
Hmm.
oh, there's a connection there. Oh, there's a connection there. And sure
Yes.
enough, there was a connection there, right?
Yes. And the funny thing about Atiba is I met him at Traffic and Conversion. Well, I said that he was the MC at Traffic and Conversion. And then when Steve Sims came to Dallas for the speakeasy, I recognized him like, "Hey, I met you at TNC." And I thought Atiba is this, because he's an MC, he's up on stage. And I found out he's just like the rest of us. He's kind of an introvert. So he told me later, he's like, "I'm so glad you recognized me when I walked into Steve's event because then I felt more comfortable." I was like, "That's why I found you."
Right?
So, yes.
Well, and he's kind of unmistakable with his Superman collection of hats, right?
Yes, which I do have to harass him because I'm more of a Batman fan. So I do
Right.
harass him as much as possible, but I love the story of how he got his hat.
I
So,
do too. I do too. And we'll talk more about Atiba a little bit later, but
yes.
tell us more about like how in the world do you end up going from your $40 million book of business and sales to like talking about people and their facial features and that whole path?
Luke's circumstances. And sometimes in life, randomness is the best thing to ever happen. And this was one of those cases. A friend was coming in from out of town. She said, "Let's go to dinner." I show up at the restaurant. She's like, "Hey, I'm not going to make it." I'm like, "Ah, here we go." She's like, "No, you got to come meet this guy. He's a speaker." And she was working a trade show. She said, "You got to come meet him." I said, "Why do I need to come meet this guy?" She goes, "Because he reads faces." And I go, "I am not coming over for that BS." And I'm like, "Nope, nope. As you can see, I got tons of books on body language, statement analysis, so you name of it. I've never heard of facial features." And I thought, "No, I'm not going." She finally convinced me to go, but I had a new plan. I was going to prove that this guy was a fraud. And so I went over there, I was like, "All right, I got this. I'm going to prove this guy. He ruined my dinner plans. So I'm going to just destroy him." And I went over there, and not only did he have a calming nature, but when we sat down, I was waiting for Barnum statements, which are, things are so generic they can apply to everyone. So I'm
Mhm.
just sitting there waiting. And he sits us all down at dinner. And without us saying a word, he slowly starts analyzing everyone's faces. When he got to me, I'm like, all right, I've been listening so far. I've been looking at other people's faces, trying to catch him, and I couldn't. And then he read my own face. And I'm like, ooh, has this guy been digging through my trash? Like, how does he know this about me? And
Right.
sure enough, he was an attorney, and it's taught to some attorneys for jury consulting. And what he realized was it has practical applications outside of the courtroom. And so he actually walked away from his law profession and taught this all over the world. That one meeting, I was skeptical, but I was curious. So I
Mhm.
bought his book, I bought his flashcards, but he lives in Fort Worth. I live in Dallas, 45 minutes away. I started driving twice a month to go to group training. And then I'd go out and I'd test it because I still think, okay, anybody can say their stuff works, but how does it work? So when I was traveling for work, and I'm an introvert to a degree, I would leave the flashcards of the book out somewhere. And when I was eating dinner at a restaurant, somebody go, well, what is that? I'm like, I think this guy is full of crap. Can I ask you some questions? And I started realizing how accurate it was. It's not 100%, but it's in the high 90s. And
Mhm.
it was a win-win because I was teaching servers a new trick to like bond with and build rapport with customers so they can make more money. And then I won because as I started doing this, I was getting feedback in real time instead of just book knowledge. And so then I started learning it and I started using it at work. And so I started out as a corporate trainer. Well, actually, if you go all the way back, help desk, installer, all jobs that people had to come to me or I was told to go do something.
Mhm.
Then I became a corporate trainer. Well, I had to start thinking, I know the material, but how do I let the other
Why?
people understand it? Well,
Yeah.
I started learning this. Are they auditory? Are they visual? Are they kinesthetic? And I would change my training for the person instead of the product. And
Mm.
I became more successful. Then I got moved into account manager, or sorry, sales engineer, then account manager, then director, and then regional vice president. And I was succeeding as an employee, but I was miserable because I wasn't doing fun stuff anymore. It was more spreadsheets and ridiculous revenue goals that you have to hit and things. And I was losing the customer element. So I
Mhm.
started speaking for free and teaching this skill. And I found that I loved it, absolutely loved it. And so then I ended up leaving corporate America. And this is what I do full time is I want to help introverts just like me to get out of the prison of their own mind and into the present moment. And that's what this really did for me. So growing up, I love to be around people, but I was terrified about being around people at the exact same time. And so
Mhm.
you're surrounded by people, but you feel alone inside your head.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking about you, I'm not thinking about me. And that's the best thing that this skill teaches.
Yeah. Right. Because your focus is on the other person
It's
and how
about
to
building.
best like
Yeah,
speak their language, so to speak. Right.
absolutely. People get really upset about this all the time. They're like, this is manipulation. I'm like, nah, I got a story for you. I used to be a horrible traveler when I was a kid because I thought no matter where I go in the world, they should speak English. And if they don't, I'll speak English louder.
Oh God.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Now
You're one
we
of
all
those
know,
people.
yeah,
Gotcha.
we know that's an obnoxious traveler, but
Yeah.
we do that in our everyday life all the time because, for example, I'm visual. Well, if I only use visual terms, I'm talking to someone who's auditory or kinesthetic, then I'm just narcissistically thinking you should think like me. And
Mhm.
part of that is because the golden rule is do unto others as you want, or treat others the way you want to be treated, but maybe they don't want to be treated like you.
Yeah.
And so it's learning that no matter what my message is, am I making it about the other person? And that will change everything. The amount of industries that we've talked to, and I've taught this to, I was with Janine Driver yesterday. We taught some of this to pharmaceutical executives, not to increase sales, but to understand their employees, to understand each other,
Mhm.
the people that they have to have business contracts with. Because so often it's just a miscommunication between people because we're not taught additional skills on how to understand other people. We're
Mhm.
just taught business skills to increase revenue. And that's not what this company was about. It was an amazing company to talk to, where almost every single person that's on the executive team has been affected by the actual drug that they help solve.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got up. I was waiting for them to say revenue. Nothing. It was always about patience and saving lives and everything. And I was blown away because you leave that room going, okay, now they're equipped with how to understand people better, how to use their body language in the right way, and they are literally saving lives. So you can't, you walk out of an event like that, like impact on humanity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we all have somebody who's been sick. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I want to learn. Tell us, like, how do we start learning these things? Because I mean,
sure.
so many people are on Zoom and you do
Mhm.
sales calls and you've got team meetings and all of this, and you all that's all you really see is the face, right? The
Correct.
upper part of the little Zoom window. So what can you
Yes.
tell us?
Sure. Let me share my screen real fast here. Let me go here and we will give everyone some visuals because I am a visual person, but we'll use auditory terms as well for
Mhm.
everyone. All right. So you can see the first picture there.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. I'm just move one little thing here. All right. So with this, what you can basically see is who am I? I'm Brian Galke. You got my name right. Very few people can. But I like to put out content for everyone. So if they go to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it, everything is subtle skills. Why did I do that? I had imposter syndrome and I was very scared to put out my own name when I started for fear of judgment. Learn from my mistakes. Get yourself out there as soon as possible because that's how people get to know you. But we already kind of talked about this. This is the skill. It took me from help desk to regional vice president of sales. But here's the cool part. What they're going to learn today is you can get free food and drinks at hotels and restaurants, how to ask for upgrades at hotels and on airlines. And I do this all the time because when you're learning to focus on other people,
Mhm.
they feel it and they see it, especially people who are working in the service industry. They're overworked, they're underpaid, people are dismissive of them. If you give them 2 seconds of your time, you change their attitude, which has a ripple effect of everyone that they're taking care of. Depending
Mhm.
on who's the desk, we're going to learn today, like for airlines or hotels, what do I need to say? How do I speak their language and ask for the upgrade? And we're going to teach you how to learn it 3 different ways.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier, like I'm an introvert by nature. People will be out talking, and I was always sitting and observing. So I was big into body language books, statement analysis, you name it, but I didn't feel like I belonged. So what does every good introvert do? I read books, went to seminars, took classes, you name it. But the thing that really changed it for me was body language first, and then with the story I told you about meeting Mac. So this was the guy who taught it all to me, and what I realized is it's just another tool for your tool belt. So I'm a huge Batman fan. We talked about that earlier. Look, he's a normal guy. He has all these cool tools. That's what this is it's another one. I'm a huge believer. You need to have body language books, statement analysis, work on yourself, become a better person. You'll attract better people at the exact same time. But to your point, what really changed it for me was this was a skill I could use on anyone, anywhere, anytime. Because if I knew who I was going to meet with, I could look them up on LinkedIn, social media, you name it. But even going to networking events, if I had to walk in, I just picked a few facial features and I figured out, okay, now I want to learn to build a relationship with that person. So instead of, well, what do they think about me? What do I talk about? Oh, hey, so what do you do? I just start thinking like, how should I ask them questions? Because I want to get to know this person. And when
Mhm.
you really try and focus on other people, it makes a huge difference. And what we're going to learn today is eyebrows because eyebrows lead to eye contact. So even if you're nervous and you're looking at somebody's eyebrows, you get credit for making eye contact at the exact same time.
I love it.
Yeah. And while the audience is learning this really for customers, coworkers, contracts, it really bleeds over to your friends and family too. So even people you've known for your entire life, you have a new way to look at them and see them differently. And you kind of brought this up earlier. Now that we've moved to Zoom meetings,
Yeah.
body language, we can't see that much. Are their arms crossed? Are their legs crossed? Are they wearing pants? We don't know. Everybody has like the suit up top and the workout gear down below because
Right.
we can't see any of that. But what I really realized is when you're doing this and you're focusing on other people, it's a reciprocal event. So the first person you see in the picture here, for those who are listening in, when the person's making it about themselves, people know that. We've all met someone with commission breath who are just pushing their product or their agenda. And when you know that they're making it all about themselves, we all disengage.
Hmm.
However, when we're focusing on someone else and they know we're focusing on them, it makes a world of difference. So no matter who you read, Tony Robbins, Brian Bogert's a friend of ours, there's four basic human needs: physical safety, emotional safety. Then people want to feel seen and heard, and people want to feel connected. So we're going to teach today is how to make others feel seen and heard, and then how to feel connected. And I know
Hmm.
people are thinking, what's it based on? It's something called physiognomy. It's been around since the Greeks. I will tell you it's labeled a pseudoscience, which it is, because a pseudoscience is anything that somebody claims as a science, which it's not, it's an art, but that doesn't meet the 5 metrics of the scientific method. So people will Google the first line and walk away. And I'm a skeptic too. So when I first met him, I told you I went to go prove Mac was a fraud, but I'm a curious skeptic. So when I dug into it, I'm like, why is this not taught? And here's the crazy thing. It used to be part of the academic system until Henry VIII said, I don't want this to be used by beggars and vagabonds against my fellow
Oh,
man. He had it pulled out of the academic system.
wow.
So this was once part of the education system, and it goes all the way back to the Greeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I learned that, I'm like, what? This is crazy because communication is one of the most important skills we have. But really, in school and even in college, you learn business skills to become a better employee, but we
Mhm.
really need more skills to become a better person,
Yeah.
especially with automation and AI coming in. Look at how many people have lost their jobs because they performed a function, but people didn't know who they are.
Sure.
So it's just more and more important. But there's 43 muscles in the face. The mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. So those 43 movements over time, when our parents said, don't make that face or get stuck that way, there's actually some truth to that. And here's the part that when I really dug into this, blew me away. We know more about faces than we think we do because we talk about them all the time in our everyday language. We say things like, keep a stiff upper lip. What does that mean? Well, be stoic. So if you see someone with a flatter upper lip and you ask them a lot of personal questions, they're like, whoa, whoa, too much too fast. We say, they've got an eye for this, they've got an ear for this. Keep your nose to the grindstone, take one on the chin. We talk about faces all the time. And faces are really a map of where has someone been and where are they today? It doesn't predict the future. It doesn't tell you who's a liar and who's a cheater. It's just literally, hey, what does their face say at this exact moment? Because our faces are constantly changing over time. And the
Hmm.
reason we also know about it is because when we were in school, we had to read all the books. Well, authors take courses in physiognomy to learn how to do character development. Because if you think they don't have a picture of every single character in a book, so the way that they describe them, especially older books, is through their actions and through their facial features.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
true.
yeah,
When you actually like think about it and break it down from that perspective,
yes.
never thought about it like that. Huh.
Yeah. That's why this is such a fun rabbit hole. Like I could talk about this for days, but um, I also have a 7-year old. And so I watch a lot of Disney movies. And guess what? I know who the hero is and who the villain is the minute the show comes on. So we've also been taught through fairy tales, storybooks, every comic books, you name it, they draw the characters and associate those personalities or characteristics with them based on their facial feature.
Hmm.
So if you look everywhere, it's fine. And I know your audience, I mentioned this earlier, you can be skeptical. I'm completely fine with that because I was too, but I like to dig in. And I can tell you after 14 years of doing it, it's not 100%, but it's in the high 90s.
Yeah.
And the way that if we were on stage today, that I would end it is I would actually bring people up on stage and decode their facial features live in front of everyone. And the reason for that is we usually spend the first 30 to 45 minutes teaching what they're going to learn today. And then we bring people up and I let the audience answer, hey, what do you see? And then we let the person go, yeah, that's me or it's not me. And
Mm-hmm.
so people ask all the time, well, what about genetics? Well, genetics is what you're born with, but from the moment you're born, epigenetics is how your body changes from due to outside influences. So I mentioned earlier, the mind creates movement. Well, it's like the guy over here in the yellow, for those who are listening, it's the guy with a big, huge upper body and little tiny legs. That's not genetics. That's what muscles he chose to move, and our faces are no different. Now, because of what I teach, nobody ever wants to look me in the face once I say anything. So I show them pictures of me when I was 18 versus 38. And where these arrows are located on the picture, for those who are listening, is just three very simple examples of how my own face has changed. So my ears used to stick out more, and my nickname was junior high, and junior high was ears. But as you get into corporate America, your ears can go closer to your head because ears are like wind drag on a plane. So the farther they stick out, the more you push back, the closer to your head, the more you go with the flow.
Oh,
Next one,
wow.
yeah. Now, I don't teach ears a lot because 50% of the time we can't see them. Like I can't see your ears.
Yeah, because mine are covered behind my hair, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I like to teach what can be looked at from a LinkedIn picture of a headshot. What can they start practicing before they meet the person? So you feel like you're walking into a warm room versus a cold room.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. Next one, notice how my eyebrows used to be straight. Now they're both angled.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go get that professionally done. That changed over time. And when you learn what angled eyebrows mean, it'll make more sense here in a minute. And last but not least, my eyes used to angle down because I was raised in an environment that said, hey, go for your goals, but what's your backup plan if it doesn't work? So if somebody's eyes angled down like mine used to, I was always worried about the downside. What do I need to be prepared for? So when I walk into a room, if I see that somebody's got downward angled eyes, I let them know the problems and challenges we already overcame with the product. in a sales
Mm,
environment. And
okay.
then I moved to the positive. So it's just learning to adapt on the fly. And people ask all the time, yes, it's more difficult with plastic surgery and
Yeah.
Botox, but it's really no different than makeup where people are choosing what to put on their face, and it's an affect versus effect thing. The what they choose to do to their face, one way or the other, is how people will eventually treat them. So the number one plastic surgery right now is lip enhancement. And why is that? Well, we talked earlier about the phrase keep a stiff upper lip, and that means be stoic. So people are having their lips enhanced because it makes them seem more approachable on their personal side. And so
Mhm.
what happens is when you have that done, we respond to that as a society and we talk to people more, and then they're getting the same attention that they were seeking by having the affect done. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. That's
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Yeah. But for your audience, what really was the big game changer for me is being the introvert. I would go in and I'd be nervous and I start getting in my own head. But if I looked people up proactively, then I was starting to change the presentation for the person instead of the product. So I felt like I'm going into this with your best interest, not what I think is important to you. So I would go look people up on LinkedIn. Here's Sam Taggart as an example. So every one of these features that you see on Sam Taggart's face tells me how to interact with him. So a brow ridge on his forehead means one thing. Low eyebrows, we're going to learn about in a minute. Little to no upper eyelid are people who are fine doing things by themselves. He's got a good full upper lip. So if I didn't ask him personal questions, then he would feel like it's strictly transactional. So you learn to intermix all these different things. And strong chin, we don't have to walk on eggshells. So we literally say, hey, take one on the chin. That's talking about how do you handle criticism and adversity.
Oh, you
Yeah.
can take that punch.
Yes, exactly. And how do you bounce
Okay.
back? So the smaller the chin, the more it hurts. So if I'm having to give feedback to somebody and they've got a smaller chin, then I use the sandwich technique. What's something good?
Mm,
What we need to address? How will it be better in the end? So the
mm.
smaller the chin, criticism sounds like shouting when you're talking to
Wow.
someone.
Yeah.
And so Sam here runs the largest door-to-door like sales training company. He's got a big event called Door to Door Con. And I went and spent a half a day with him. And that's how I ended up in his book because he was like, oh my gosh, we can use this all the time. So imagine knocking on doors and you have about 7 seconds to figure out how am I going to talk to this person before they either pull a gun, slam the door shut, or call the police on me.
Right.
Yeah. So it was out there, but it can be used in networking environments, business meetings. Like I said, I could prepare if I knew who I'm meeting with. I go look them up on LinkedIn. I figure out what do I need to change. And when I walk in, I feel more confident about it. And you're not going to walk in and go, hey, look, I analyzed your face. Well, it's the same thing. You don't walk in and go, I just read a body language book. You know,
Let me look at your body. You're like,
exactly.
whoa, that's weird.
Yeah. So that's why it's called subtle skills, is because you're not telling anybody what you're doing, but you're watching and seeing how they react to it. And my favorite thing is when you're talking to somebody about faces, well, if I'm looking at you like this the entire time, I'm giving you my time and attention. But if I was looking at body language, it's like the Zoom mistake people make. They don't look at the camera, they look down at everybody to see how everyone's reacting. And then we don't feel like you're paying attention to me.
Right.
But enough talking, let's teach. So here's the voice. If you've never heard the voice, it's four judges that start like this. And only if they like what they hear, then they turn around to see what the person looks like. Well,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense to me because they all have large ears and smaller eyes. And people go, well, they're musicians. Well, doesn't that just prove the point even more? They're all auditory people. That's why they're perfect for the judges of this show. And they go, you're cherry picking. I'm like, okay, well, let's just pick a different season. Same features, very large ears, smaller eyes. Now you can have the opposite of that. You can see people with large eyes and smaller ears. And then you would change it from auditory phrases like, hey, does this sound like a good idea? Do you hear where I'm coming from? To visual phrases like, do you see where I'm coming from? Hey, imagine this or picture this. I'm still doing the same thing, but I'm trying to speak your language.
Uh-huh.
So I don't have to be fully proficient in yours, but I need to make sure I'm not just speaking mine. So when
Yeah.
you talk to people and you put out material, you got to think, are they auditory? Are they visual? Are they kinesthetic? Am I putting all this in my marketing and branding to try and reach everyone? But
So hold on, before you keep going,
yes,
you could technically go and look at all of your past clients and
correct.
see what are the commonalities in
Yes.
all of them, and
Hmm.
then adjust your marketing to see, okay, so visionaries, do they have the bigger eyes? Do
Yes.
do they have bigger ears? Do they have, like That's so cool. I'm totally having my team go back and look to
And you
see
can
if
do
you
it.
can see the commonality because that's just like brilliant.
You know how else you can do it? Go
Oh,
read their emails because people will tell you how they think.
they
Because
will. If
yes,
it's
because
think or I feel or I see or oh
so
yeah.
if they're kinesthetic learners, they're going to say things like, "Look, I just want to wrap this up. Let's hit the ground running. I can't wait to close this deal." All action words. If they're visual, "Oh, I see where you're coming from now. What I was picturing in my mind was this," or you know, I can't really hear where you're coming from. I've tried, I listened to this, I played it back in my mind, and I really just don't hear what you're talking about. People will tell you in their words, in their emails, in their texts how to talk to them. So a very good example, since you know Janine Driver, right? The body language expert.
Yeah.
So she has larger ears versus her eyes. If I send her a regular text, she ignores me. Send her a voice text, she immediately responds.
So good.
Yeah. So
So good.
So
Yeah.
play with people. And if you really want to test it, video is great because what is video? They get to see you and they get
Yep.
to hear you at the exact
Yep.
same time. So I have friends that I'll send them a message and whatever they send me back, that's my new method for them. So like my friend Mary, she's a video person. Janine is voice, text, or video. So just depending on who I'm talking to determines how do I respond to the person. And it's a sign of respect. It's saying I'm willing to change the way that I would normally communicate to try and work on your communication too. So it's being respectful
Hmm.
when you're doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Especially if you're looking to support them in the transformation that they're coming to you for,
yes,
you're just going to get them there faster.
that's exactly it.
I
Because if
love
you're trying
it.
to speak their language, you're removing barriers in communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, keep
I'm
going.
just, all right, all right, all right. So here we're going to talk about eyebrow basics, and I'm going to apologize for the first slide, but I make up for it in the second slide. So for people who
Okay.
are listening, you just got to go see the slide.
Yeah.
So the first one is if you go and Google people without eyebrows, celebrities show up. And it's creepy how people look with just one feature taken away. And so there's a good book, I have it right here, called The Like Switch. So The Like Switch is written by a former FBI trainer on how to get certain agents to try and flip assets to speak again or to, basically come over to our side. And what they talk about is the first thing that we instinctively do when a new stranger walks in the room, we look at them and we first look and do they raise their eyebrows up like, "Hey, how are you doing?" In recognition, are they a friend or do they squint down like a foe? Then after that, we go and search their hands for, do they have a weapon to kill me? So they will teach certain agents who are trying to, flip an asset to when they walk into a room, raise your eyebrows up, tilt your head and smile. So that's why I teach eyebrows because we automatically look at people's eyebrows first. The minute they walk in the door, that's the first place we go. Then we may do a body scan, but that's the first thing that instinctively we do because anytime a stranger came into our tribe, our camp, our house, our home, you name it, that's what we looked first. It was a safety mechanism. So why not take that built in by design safety and figure out now how do I use it to understand other people?
Yeah.
So now we're looking at the picture of people without eyebrows. So like Angelina Jolie in school, I thought she was hot without eyebrows. She is not. You know, Nicolas Cage here, creepy looking with no eyebrows.
Right.
So yeah, both ways, I don't think he really looks good. But now reversing it, there's a picture of people who draw eyebrows on babies.
Oh my gosh.
And see, look, if
Changes
we
the look of their expression in their face, and you're like, whoa.
yeah, like my favorite one is where it says drawing angry eyebrows. That kid's just laughing, but you hear an evil villain laugh
Yeah.
based on just the eyebrows. So that's why I say we've been trained our entire life. We just didn't know how does it work. So we'll go a little
Mhm.
more in depth. But one last picture is you can have the same person, you remove just eyebrows, and you're like, I don't know how to talk to the person. So for the people who are listening, on one side she has an eyebrow, and on the other side she doesn't. Just taking away that one feature matters because eyebrows, while they were started to keep us safe, basically they kept dirt out of our eyes and everything else, actually tell you how do people take in and process information.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mentioned earlier, we talk about faces all the time. I'm a huge fan of comedies. And so there's two types of comedies. There's highbrow humor and lowbrow humor. Now, people get this wrong because they think royalty and looking down on people, but it's in reference to the height of the eyebrow from the eye. So if somebody has highbrow humor, or they have high eyebrows, that's when the comedian tells you a joke and you have to think about it and then you laugh.
Oh, and
Versus,
you look up into your
yes,
brain,
yeah, you look
think
up and you
about
just
it.
and you need more time. So,
Yeah.
some of the really good comedians tell jokes that you have to think about, and then you're like, oh, I get it, and then you laugh. And then there's the opposite. Lowbrow humor is Jackass, Three Stooges, Charlie Chaplin, physical humor that we don't have to think about. It just makes us laugh and or cringe. So that's where the phrases come from, highbrow humor versus lowbrow humor. So when you start looking at people, like there's four people on the screen here that they all have high eyebrows. And what's considered high is anything higher than a finger is considered high. So that's like a speed bump in the middle of your forehead. If I'm trying to get to my eye, I can only go so fast. I have to go over the speed bump and then I try and speed up again. So if you meet someone who has a higher eyebrow and you have 30 minutes on their calendar, you're probably going to be there for about 25 minutes giving your presentation and having conversations because these are people who need a little more time to make a decision. So I fall into that category where I don't make rush decisions. Now, there's a lot of things I'm like, oh, I want to do it, but I don't pull the trigger immediately. I need time to think about it. So my number one pet peeve is when people want to come in and like one call close and just push me into it, because then I get buyer's remorse.
Mm.
And what you'll see is the opposite of that is people who have very low eyebrows. And you can see in this picture, all four people, their eyebrows like sitting on top of their eye. Well, that's like putting a speed bump by the stop sign. So that data can race right down their forehead and just slow down at the last minute. So if you have 30 minutes on their calendar, you better get to the point in 5 minutes and let them ask questions the remaining point of time. Because with these people, the longer you talk, the more you're going to lose them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Get to the
So
point.
it's straight, get there. It's race to the finish, right? Get there fast. So we teach this in people who do door to door, but it can be used for employees. So if you have to give an employee something to get done, you don't need to give them a whole long breakdown of what you need. You just get to it. Hey, what do you need done? How fast do you need it done? The more information you give them, the more that the longer they wait to get started. They're like, what do I need? What do you want? Let's get going.
Yeah.
But somebody with higher information, you're going to have to give them more detail and give them time to get started. Everybody will still get to the finish line, but it's kind of like the tortoise in the hare. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hair and the tortoise. Yeah.
Yeah. Is you're both going to get to the finish line, but it's a matter of how do you accomplish it. So
Got it.
then you just start looking at people and thinking, okay, like who has high eyebrows and low eyebrows. So for the people, this is what I'd normally say. If you're in a group setting, so you're selling one to many,
Yeah.
and I walked into a room like this, which person would I start with? I would start with number four because she has the highest eyebrows. So when I used to go and do presentations, a lot of times we had a blind evaluation committee. And so when we walked in, we didn't always know who would be in the room. So the first thing I look for is who has the highest eyebrows. And when I started talking, I would make eye contact with that person first to get them rolling. And I'd work my way down to the closer eyebrow because they need less time to think. So when you go into rooms, you just start thinking high or low. Do they need more time to come down to their eye or are they right on top of their eye? So that's a
Mm-hmm.
very, very simple one. And people are like, listen, eyebrows aren't that important. There's no way. And I'm like, okay, go tell Lego that they're not important either because
Oh
they're
my God. They do have little eyebrows on them.
yes, and there's three basic shapes. Now I could talk about eyebrows for half a day just going so in depth with them, but I want the audience to walk away with tactical information that they can immediately put in. So we already talked about highbrow humor, lowbrow humor. It's an easy way to remember it. But then there's three basic shapes of eyebrows. So there's straight, angled, and rounded eyebrows. And I mentioned earlier, we're trained by books we read, television shows, movies. So if I were to say, think of a character who's based on just logic, who would you think of? I'll give you a hint. He's in Star Trek.
Like,
Spock.
oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So look up
Okay.
it.
Very straight.
And what's he all about? Facts, figures, data,
Yep.
logic. So
Yep.
when you see straight eyebrows, just think straight to the point.
Okay.
Facts, figures, data. So when you look at someone, if it's straight, facts, figures, data, straight to the point. Here we also have Warren Buffett. These are people who love the numbers, the data behind things. So let me use like a real estate example. If someone's buying a house and they have straight eyebrows, what are you looking for? A 3.3, a 2.2? What's the square footage do you want? Do you need to know interest payments? What your monthly payment is? Facts, figures, and data. You can
Yep.
take this across any industry. So let's say somebody's in the digital marketing space. Okay, how long is the contract? What are you looking for? How many posts? What are we handling for you? Facts, figures, data. Then the second one is angled eyebrows. So angled eyebrows are people who need to know what's my angle. So you need to help me understand it first, so then I can go help everyone else. So here there's a picture of Ruth Ginsburg. She wanted to help women, but she became an attorney first and then figured out how to put that to better use because she
Mm-hmm.
still wanted to help women, but you need to understand the law. You need to understand all these things. That's how she helped make change in the world. Now, I put myself on here because you saw when I was a kid, I used to have straight eyebrows.
Yeah.
When I became a corporate trainer, I mentioned I had to figure out how do I present the information for the person and not the product. And that's when I became, my eyebrows became angled because I had to understand what I was reteaching to other people. And as I learned this and I'm teaching it to other people, the eyebrows are getting worse. So when you see angled eyebrows, it's what's their angle, help them understand. And
Okay.
then the third one is rounded eyebrows. Think about the people around them first and themselves second. So if you go in talking about, hey, once you buy my product, you will be amazed what you're going to get. They don't hear that. They think about the people around them. Well, with my product, the way it's going to help your friends and family or your coworkers, depending on what you're selling, that's how you talk to people with rounded eyebrows because they think about the people around them first and themselves second. And
Hmm.
for the people listening, there's a picture of Oprah and there's a picture of Elon. Well, let me tell you first, post this on the internet if you want a lot of hate, but let me explain why I chose these two people. Oprah, if you think about it, her name is on the show, but the show's not about her. We tune into the show to find out who's she going to interview and what's she going to give her audience.
Yeah.
Elon Musk. So I think he made 75 million from his portion of PayPal when they sold. He could have retired butt in the sand, drinking margaritas. He put all that money back into Tesla, which is to help people, not just him. Same thing with SpaceX. Now, people have different opinions on X, but look at where people put their money. It tells you where their priorities are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at characteristics or drawings of him, they always show that he's got a rounded eyebrow. So even
Mm-hmm.
though people think, he's a logic-based person, look at everything he does. It's about helping others, and his name just happens to be associated with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So a good story about this is our friend Atiba. We were on a podcast, and Atiba will tell you right out of the gate, he was as skeptical as I was. He's like, listen, if you know Atiba, he'll always say, now listen. Uh, so we got on a podcast and we talked, and he's like, I still don't know. And he said, but I've got this big presentation coming up later. I'm like, you got a picture of the guy? He's like, well, we can find one. So we went and found a picture of who he was going to be presenting to later. And we talked about what's the product. And then we looked at that doctor's face. And Atib kind of ran through what his presentation was. I'm like, oh, no, you need to change this, this, and this. So that particular doctor had low, straight eyebrows. So facts, figures, data, and cut your presentation short and let them ask questions. And there were a few other tweaks we gave him, but that's just referencing back what your audience has learned today. Atiba walked away with a six-figure contract, and the guy never even asked the price.
That's insane.
Yeah. So
That's
that's why,
amazing.
yeah. So look, this isn't a skill I was born with. It's a learned skill.
Yeah.
So if you have time to learn the skill, there's ways that you can learn it. If not, there's like consulting where we can do it done for you, like we did with Atiba. But the whole point is we didn't do anything except for figure out how can Atiba speak that person's language and not make it about Atiba.
Yeah.
That's how you win in life is people have the power to give you everything you need in life when you don't make it about you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And does Atiba have round eyebrows?
I would have to pull his back up because I look at so many faces, and
Yeah.
that's a good part. I don't immediately do it. I have to want to do it. Like we're gonna do it with your face here in a minute because we saw a picture of you earlier.
Yep.
But to put a bow on this, so let's say that you want an upgrade at a hotel because hotels are easier to do because they have status, but people at the front desk have a lot more power than they do at the airlines. So if I walked up and I wanted an upgrade and I see straight eyebrows, I'd walk right up and go, I'd like an upgrade, please. If they had an angled eyebrow, I'd walk up and I say, are you the person who can help me get an upgrade in the room? And then I would mention my status, but I'm making it about them. What's their angle? Help them understand why it's good to help me. And then if it's the rounded way, I go, oh God, that was a long flight or a long drive. I would just love if I had a larger room that I could just go and stretch my legs in and everything. Is an upgrade available? Then I'm
Mm,
making it about the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
happens all the time. And now it's not impossible with airlines, but it's harder. But one time I was in Indianapolis and I was trying to get back home to Dallas and there were storms. My flight was supposed to leave at 5. They moved us to 8:30. Then I was going to they rerouted us to New York City. I was going to have to spend like 6 hours in LaGuardia Airport overnight and then fly home, like 14 hours of that. I'm like, nope, nope, not going to do that. So there was a 3 o'clock flight. So I went on standby, but I checked in at the front desk, but it's the people at the gate, the ones everybody likes to
Yep.
yell at.
Yep.
And she had rounded eyebrows. So I walked up and I said, how are your coworkers doing today? I know you guys control the weather. This is all their fault. Are they doing okay? And she said, yeah. And I said, all right. And how are you doing? And she said, it's been a tough day. I said, okay, well, sorry to hear that. I said, listen, I'm on the 8:30 flight. I'm in the second best seat in the house. I got exit row, but I don't want to go sit in the airport. I said, I have friends in New York City. If I'm going to go, I want to go explore the city. I want to go have dinner with my friends. I want to just go and have some fun. If there's any way I can get on this 3:30 flight, that would make all those things possible. Do you think I got on the 3:30 flight?
Yeah.
Where do you think she put me?
Did she put you on the exit?
She put me in first class.
Shut the front door.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So people have the power to help you, but we treat people that have that power like they're minions. It's so
Yeah.
weird to me.
Yes.
Why yell at the person at the desk? Now, there is a time if you're being treated rudely
Yeah.
or something is ridiculous that you can express your disdain. But to yell at them if a pilot timed out or a flight attendant timed out or the weather's controlling it, they're just working the computer. So
Mm-hmm.
just be nice to them. But to wrap this up real fast, and then we're going to look at your face. Easy way to remember it is just the acronym FACE. So it's find the feature, assess the meaning, convert it. So the way I want to say it to how would they best understand it, and then express it back to them. So to look at it a different way for your visual learners, it's go look them up on LinkedIn, social media, find your favorite feature, start thinking, what does that feature mean? And then what do I need to change in my language? And the really cool thing about it is it has endless capabilities of how it can help you in terms of business, networking, sales, contract negotiations. But what we don't talk about is employees and hiring. So there was an SHRM study that to replace a $60,000 a year employee actually costs the company up to $120,000. And that's because to recruit a new person is around 30 to 40,000. You have to take another employee off the line to help, get them ramped up. So you're affecting the business twice as much as the salary is. So imagine taking the skill, and it's not always about learning to sell somebody something. Sometimes it's to help people feel appreciated. So if you can look at one of your employees and think, okay, well, they're visual and I'm auditory. Well, I give them a lot of verbal kudos. Maybe I should put it in an email because they're visual.
Okay.
Or the opposite. Maybe I'm visual and I want to put them an email. You did a great job last week, but they're auditory and they want to hear it. So it's these little ways to make them feel seen and heard. And that's what we all deserve. Like we mentioned earlier, between automation and AI, we want to make people feel seen and heard. And having a personality and recognizing people as a person is what's going to change things in the coming future.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier, it bleeds over into your family life too. Because if you can learn these skills, things that used to drive me nuts about people, I now go, that's just the way they're wired. So now I just appreciate who they are instead of being frustrated by what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And your face gives you examples of how you do it. So how did I learn it? I did, I went and studied with the coach, then I took his classes, flashcards, so, social media, you name it. But the funnest place to practice it for anybody who's nervous and doesn't want to put their business on the line, start with people in the service industry.
Yeah.
Again, nobody's paying attention to them. So stop buying the next person's coffee in line. That affects one person. Stop and talk to the barista. And when you make them feel better, they treat the next 10 people better. So they're both good acts of service, but one has a greater impact and ripple effect. And so to put it back up there, everything we covered is in the cheat sheet today. If for those who are listening, very simple. If you want to know how to get the cheat sheet, it's getthecheatsheet.com. But one of the things that we talked about is I want to look and analyze your face
Okay.
for your audience. So I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to reshare. Actually, I may take another picture of it. Let's go to Sketch though. There we go. So that was a picture from earlier, but it looks like actually I'm going to get a better one now. So we will do this live and on the fly.
Let me pull back my hair so you can see
Oh,
ears a little
oh,
better.
yeah.
Oh,
I
that
caught you.
one.
I'm deleting it. I'm deleting it. Okay. Yes. All right. So now that we can see, yes, ears was a very good point. All right. Okay. So I'll make this just a little bit larger here. So the first things that I noticed is we talked about what type of eyebrows do you have. So if everybody looks here, you have the rounded eyebrows. So you think about other people first and then yourself second. Now, what you also have is you have a little bit of space there. So if I push you for the one call close, I'm just rushing you through things. I would not do that because that's going to bring that buyer's remorse. Kind of like I have to give you some time to make your decision. Now, you don't have a lot of upper eyelid. So let me make this a little bit larger. There you go. So what's interesting is you have more eyelid on your personal side and you have less on your professional side. So an easy way to remember which side is which is if I say, hey, are you married? That's a personal question. A wedding ring in the US, we go on the left hand. And so personal also ends in L, and you can make the L with that hand. So this is always the personal side of someone's face. It's about right brain versus left brain thinking. And so when you're looking at someone, you think, okay, am I talking to them about something personal or am I talking business? And so you can look at different sides. So if you look over here on your, let me just draw a line down the middle.
You said the left side is the personal side?
Correct. So if I say, hey, are you married? It's a personal question. That's where a wedding ring would go.
Uh-huh.
So over here would be business. Whoops. I'm going to get rid of this. So this is the business side. And this, quit doing lines, is the personal. Okay, so when you're looking at people, most people are symmetrical like you are. Now, it's only when I really zoomed in to the 200 that I could see this little bit of eyelid that you have here.
Yep.
So you're more of a we person at home. So the more lid you see, the more they think in terms of we. So you enjoy doing things with others at home, but at work, you don't have a lot of upper eyelids. You're fine doing things by yourself. If other people join you, it's a bonus, but it's not a requirement.
Yep.
Now, if we were working together on something, and let's say we're in the same room and you had fuller eyelids and I want to go grab a coffee, I don't have a lot of upper eyelids. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go grab a coffee, but I have to stop and think, oh, she's got a fuller lid. So the more lid you see, the more they think in terms of we, hey, I'm going to go get coffee. You want to go with me?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's including people. So when I was married, she was auditory and I was visual. Well, so what we had to do is figure out a system for things like if I'm going to the store, you better text me or I'm coming back with like 3 of the right things and 12 of the wrong things. So what she wanted, she had to text me because I'm visual. If she was going to the store, I would want to text her and I had to fight that urge and just tell her what I needed because that's what people who have larger ears, they're auditory based. They hear what you said and they also hold you to your word. And so it's just learning to adjust to how do we meet in the middle. There is no right or wrong facial features. There's some that you have to be a little bit worried about, but overall, it's just like understanding, going, okay, what do we have in common and what's different? So back over here on your personal side, you're more of a we person, but on your professional side, you can see there's not a lot of upper eyelids. You're fine doing things by yourself. This little crease that you have, let me change here. Let me make this arrow a little bit smaller. This crease that you have right here, and can I draw it in there? So here's the crease is having a hard time delegating things out to other people. So when you first do it, you're going to follow up constantly, make sure they're doing it to your standards. So it's fine when I see that nose crease on someone, I go, okay, even if they give me a job, it's not micromanaging. It's saying, hey, I'm not used to handing things off. I had to learn to build this by myself. I'm going to follow up to make sure you're living and holding up to what I started. So that's one of those earlier that some people go, oh my gosh, my boss is a micromanager. No, maybe they just want a little more to ensure that the quality's there versus you kind of like good enough is good enough. So
Mm-hmm.
it's learning to appreciate different things about people. You've got a good, strong, whoops, let me go back to the arrow. Good, strong chin here, so I don't have to walk on eggshells when I'm talking to you. These right here are called talk lines. So I know that's how you get to know people through conversation versus email and text. So when you see all these different things, that's what you can understand about when you're talking to someone else. So we learned this earlier. If I'm talking to you, you have the rounded eyebrows. So I'm going to talk about how your clients and customers are going to benefit. Then I'm going to talk about how you're going to benefit. And what's ironic about that is in your videos, that's how you sent the information is here's what I want you to know about my audience. Then when we're done with my audience, then we can talk about how we can work together. That's literally in one of your
It's
videos.
literally, yeah, in the prep videos for anybody who's a guest on the podcast, that's literally
Yes.
what I say. Yeah.
Yeah. but it's literally written on your face.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so I wanted to mention that, and it's kind of like cheating, but I already knew that about you because I'd seen your face before. And like I said, I can go and look up people on LinkedIn, social media ahead of time. And the whole reason I'm doing like this is because I want to feel like I get to know you versus getting on the call and then getting in my own head. So
Yeah.
if I think ahead of time, okay, I know this about her, then I feel like I'm walking into and catching up with an old friend
Hmm.
versus walking in completely cold. And I used to sell technology to jails and prisons. So you imagine walking into a room full of stoic people who don't share a lot of emotion. They just kind of sit in the back and,
Arms
so
crossed, stare at
yeah,
you. Yeah.
exactly. And it's a defense mechanism for the type of industry that they're in. You can't be overly emotional and be in corrections, but
Yeah.
that made our job more difficult. Well, I was never telling anybody what I learned, but I was actually part of a what we call the pro demo team, which was any customer over $1 million. I was flown out to do one of the presentations, and people didn't know why I was good at presenting. This was my secret weapon because I felt shame for a lot of years. Like, why is it so easy for everyone? And then I have to study to understand people. What I realized is there's a lot more introverts than there are extroverts. It's just we're taught that introvert bad, extrovert good.
Mhm.
So
So true. So true. Brian, this has been freaking amazing. You dropped so many diamonds and so many ahas. I know you've got the QR code, we've got the link that's going to be in the show notes and how to stay in touch with you um,
yes,
and find you on social media and everything. So let me ask you, the last question I have for you today is what is a takeaway or a memorable note you'd like to leave our audience with?
sure. The takeaway is people are struggling right now. People feel like they're not living up to the life that they see of social media with everyone else. We don't feel seen and heard. We feel like a number. We don't feel like we can compete with everything. If you spend a few extra times or seconds just focusing on someone else when you're talking to them, this device connects us with the world, but it disconnects us from each other. So learn to stop, just focus at someone, think, are their eyebrows high or low? You can do that. You don't even have to practice anything else. Just think, are their eyebrows high or low? And they're going to be like, you're actually paying attention to me. Yes, I want to pay attention to you. You're important. And that's what people have lost with Zoom and not being in the room with other people. Everybody here has the power to make someone else feel seen and heard. That may change someone's life. That may save someone's life because they feel like nobody sees them until you come along. So go and practice this.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure.
And I want to thank our audience for joining us on another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm super excited for you to take like all of these lessons, these resources, get the cheat sheet, come back and tell us how it's been working for you, implement
Mhm.
it so that you can create even more impact in your world. Until next time, have an outstanding rest of your day. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast. If you are a successful coach, speaker, author, or thought leader who would like to be on this program, simply visit creatingpowerfulimpact.com/guest. If you are someone who got something out of this interview, would you please do me a favor and share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on your socials. Also, if you know somebody that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Creating Powerful Impact. I love seeing all of your posts and great guest selections. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up ratings and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they really mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more about us? Head on over to our website, graceandeaseproductions.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just look for Grace and Ease Productions on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.